The Supreme Court has just issued a ruling that will forever change gun ownership in the United States. For decades, firearm permits controlled who could legally carry, transport, and protect themselves with a gun. That system is officially gone. The November 2025 decision ends all firearm permits nationwide, creating one of the most significant shifts in Second Amendment law in decades. This ruling is not a small procedural change. It redefines the constitutional rights of every American gun owner, and understanding its full impact is critical for anyone who owns, carries, or plans to carry a firearm. For many years, states used a combination of discretionary and shall-issue permitting systems to regulate firearms. Some allowed permits only under good cause conditions, while others issued them as long as a citizen met basic eligibility requirements. But the Supreme Court's ruling removes these permits entirely. No longer will local or state authorities have unchecked discretion to grant or deny a permit based on subjective criteria. Every law-abiding American now has the right to carry without seeking permission, but that doesn't mean there are no responsibilities. Freedom without understanding can create serious legal risks, and gun owners must now take a proactive approach to compliance, safety, and awareness. While the permits are gone, rules regarding where and how you can carry remain in force. Sensitive locations such as schools, federal buildings, and certain public spaces are still off-limits unless explicitly permitted. Understanding these boundaries is now more important than ever, because while the court has removed bureaucratic approval as a hurdle, violating these restrictions could still result in criminal penalties. Lawful gun ownership now relies on knowledge, responsibility, and adherence to established laws rather than paperwork. Transportation laws also remain a critical concern. Even though permits are no longer required, firearms must be carried in compliance with state-specific rules. This often means keeping firearms unloaded and secured during transport and ensuring that they are not easily accessible while in a vehicle. Travelers must be especially careful when crossing state lines. In the past, reciprocity agreements determined whether a permit from one state was recognized in another. Now, constitutional carry applies across the board, but state restrictions on transport, storage, and use remain enforceable. Missteps can still lead to serious consequences, so understanding each state's laws is essential. Training and education take on a new level of importance under this ruling. While the court removed the requirement for permits, responsible gun ownership demands knowledge. Every citizen who carries a firearm must understand basic firearm safety, self-defense laws, and applicable state regulations. Many states may continue to require voluntary training or education programs, and participating in these ensures you stay within legal boundaries and reduces liability. The focus has shifted from approval to behavior. What you do with your firearm and how safely you do it is now what matters most. Federal laws remain fully enforceable. Background checks, prohibited persons lists, and rules regarding firearm sales and transfers are unaffected. Gun owners must now navigate both federal and state laws simultaneously. This dual-layered framework makes it even more essential to stay informed. Law-abiding citizens now carry the responsibility for understanding all applicable laws because permits no longer serve as a buffer. Ignorance is no longer a defense, and the burden is on the owner to comply. The Supreme Court's decision has also redefined how law enforcement interacts with gun owners. Police officers can no longer rely on permit databases to verify lawful carrying. Instead, lawful possession is presumed unless there is evidence of criminal intent or prohibited status. This means officers will need to rely on behavior and context, and citizens need to ensure their actions are legally defensible at all times. This is a significant culture shift in American law enforcement, emphasizing rights over bureaucracy. State-specific implications are critical. In historically restrictive states like California, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland, the ruling removes the permit requirement but does not eliminate all restrictions. These states often have sensitive place laws, mandatory training, or insurance requirements. Gun owners in these regions must pay close attention to existing statutes, because carrying a firearm without understanding these nuanced rules can still lead to legal trouble. Even in shall-issue states, practices for training, storage, and background compliance must be followed closely to remain lawful. In other states, the impact is dramatic. States that previously required good cause permits for carrying, such as Hawaii and Massachusetts, now face an immediate change in the legal landscape. Law-abiding citizens can carry without seeking local approval, but must still adhere to safe storage, transport, and use requirements. This is a transformative moment for gun rights advocates, as long-standing bureaucratic barriers are removed, restoring constitutional freedoms that were previously restricted. Self-defense laws are also affected. Many civil liability concerns related to lawful defensive actions may be mitigated under this ruling. Previously, even after a justified self-defense shooting, lawsuits could drag gun owners through years of legal and financial hardship. While the court did not directly rule on civil immunity, removing permits strengthens the principle that lawful gun ownership and self-defense rights are inherent, not granted by the state. Gun owners must now focus on understanding self-defense laws thoroughly to ensure they act within legal parameters. The practical side of this ruling cannot be overstated. Gun owners must review all aspects of ownership: carry habits, storage solutions, training, and interstate travel. Firearm instructors, legal advisors, and gun rights groups are already responding with guidance to help citizens comply. This is not a time to be passive. Preparation, knowledge, and responsibility are now more important than ever, because freedom without understanding is dangerous. This decision will also influence future legislation. State lawmakers may attempt to introduce alternative restrictions, such as optional licensing for reciprocity, enhanced background checks at the point of sale, or limitations on carrying in sensitive areas. However, any new law must respect the Supreme Court's emphasis on constitutional rights over bureaucratic permits. Gun owners will need to monitor legislation closely to ensure that their rights are not unintentionally eroded by new rules framed in compliance with this ruling. For law-abiding citizens, this is a historic victory, but it comes with heightened responsibility. Understanding safe handling, compliance with transport laws, knowledge of sensitive locations, and staying updated on both state and federal law are now the pillars of lawful ownership. This ruling returns power to the people, but makes it clear that freedom is inseparable from responsibility. Every gun owner must actively engage with these changes to ensure both personal safety and legal compliance. The Supreme Court has restored the principle that lawful gun ownership is an immediate right, not a privilege granted by bureaucrats. This historic decision will be studied and referenced for decades as a cornerstone of Second Amendment law. For gun owners, this means exercising their rights responsibly, educating themselves continuously, and remaining vigilant in understanding the evolving legal landscape. The era of permits is over, but the era of responsible ownership has never been more important. In practical terms, this means reviewing all firearms in your possession, updating storage and transport practices, ensuring training is current, and understanding the laws that govern sensitive locations. States may maintain certain regulations, but the removal of permits shifts the burden from bureaucratic approval to personal responsibility. Law-abiding gun owners now carry the power and the duty to act responsibly, and understanding that balance is key to staying safe and legal. For those who travel, knowledge of each state's laws is essential. While the court's ruling ensures the right to carry, local restrictions on transport, public carrying, and sensitive areas still apply. Planning your routes, securing firearms properly, and understanding each state's legal landscape is more critical than ever. Missteps could lead to serious consequences even though permits are no longer required. Finally, the Supreme Court's ruling is a wake-up call for all Americans who value constitutional rights. Freedom is restored, but with freedom comes responsibility. Law-abiding citizens must adapt, stay educated, and actively ensure that their ownership practices are safe and legal. Training, proper storage, knowledge of the law, and adherence to safety practices are now the defining elements of lawful gun ownership. This is a historic turning point, a shift toward empowerment, and a reminder that rights must always be exercised responsibly. Now that you fully understand the historic Supreme Court ruling ending all firearm permits nationwide, it's time to take action. This is not just a legal update. It's a moment that demands your immediate attention as a responsible gun owner. Your rights have been restored, but with freedom comes responsibility. Knowing the law is only the first step. What you do next will determine how safely and legally you exercise your constitutional rights. First, review every firearm you own. Make sure you understand how to store, transport, and carry each one according to both federal and state law. While permits are no longer required, safe handling and secure storage remain absolutely essential. Invest in proper safes, locking systems, and carrying methods to ensure your firearms are protected from accidents, theft, or misuse. This is your personal responsibility now more than ever. Second, get trained. Education is the cornerstone of responsible ownership. Even without permits, the Supreme Court decision doesn't remove the obligation to know the law and handle your firearms safely. Enroll in professional firearm training courses if you haven't already, review your self-defense laws, and make sure you are confident in your ability to carry safely. The better prepared you are, the safer you and your community will be, and the more effectively you can exercise your rights without risk. Third, understand your state-specific laws. While permits are gone, regulations on sensitive locations, transport, and use still exist. Plan your routes carefully when traveling across state lines. Understand where carrying is restricted and be proactive in knowing your legal boundaries. Being informed prevents accidental violations and ensures you can enjoy your rights responsibly. Fourth, stay informed. This ruling sets a historic precedent, but it will also trigger changes, clarifications, and potentially new legislation in different states. Follow reputable news sources, legal advisors, and firearm advocacy groups to ensure you are always aware of the latest updates. Knowledge is power, and staying educated is now part of exercising your Second Amendment rights. Finally, act responsibly. Lawful gun ownership is no longer about getting permission. It's about demonstrating responsibility, knowledge, and safe behavior. Carry with confidence, but always within the bounds of the law. Practice safe storage at home. Maintain proper handling techniques, and educate anyone in your household who may come into contact with firearms. The Supreme Court has restored your right, but it is up to you to wield it wisely. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel for detailed breakdowns, expert guidance, and updates on how this ruling affects every American gun owner. Like this video, share it with fellow firearm owners, and stay engaged because knowledge is the key to exercising your rights safely and responsibly. Remember, this is a historic moment, but the responsibility lies in your hands. Stay prepared, stay informed, and make sure your exercise of your rights is always lawful and safe. Your freedom depends on it.